Okay, so question number 7 asks to calculate what the milligrams of a drug would be per hour if the dog is receiving 40 mils an hour of fluids and needs a drug of 2 milligrams per kilogram per hour added to 500 mils of fluid. So the first part is to find out how many milligrams of the drug would you add. So that part is fairly easy, obviously. 10 kilograms times 2 milligrams per kilogram per hour equals 20 milligrams per hour. So the dog would need 20 milligrams per hour. And to finish the question, that formula that I had written out before, so it's always going to be the drug in either milligrams per hour, as in this question, or mils an hour, over the fluid rate in mils an hour equals X milligrams of drug over whatever the mils that you're adding to. So this would be 500. So I just put mils of fluid. So this is the formula, and it's always going to be milligrams per hour over mils an hour, or drugs in mils an hour over mils an hour equals milligrams or mils of the drug that you need over mils of fluid. So in this case, it's milligrams. So on the top of our formula, we have milligrams and milligrams and mils and mils. So as long as this and that match in terms of the value, or like what you're trying to find, so either milligrams and milligrams or mils and mils, and this is always going to be mils and mils, and this will always be something per hour, and just the mils or milligrams and mils. So that could help you figure out how to set up the formula, but that's the formula. You should memorize it, and then you can just plug in your the rest of the question. So we already have the drug in milligrams per hour here. We know the fluid rate in mils an hour is 40 because the question gives us that. And the mils of fluid we're adding it to is 500. Question gives you that. So the only thing we don't know is this X milligrams. So we're going to just put in 20 milligrams per hour over 40 mils an hour equals X milligrams of the drug over 500 mils of fluid. So again, that's all given here. The only thing we had to figure out is the milligrams per hour. And here you cross multiply, excuse me. So some students actually cross this and cross that, or do arrows just so you remember what you're multiplying. So this would equal, and I'm going to drop the mils and milligrams per hour here. So 20 times 500 from here to here, keep the equal sign, equals 40 times X. And if you don't remember how to isolate X, we'll do it here, but so then I always start on this side. So 20 times 500 is 10,000. So this now becomes 10,000 equals 40 times X. And to isolate X, you just have to divide both sides by whatever X is beside. So you would divide this by 40 and divide this by 40. And then that cancels that out and you're left with just X. So then this becomes X equals 10,000 divided by 40, and X equals 250. And the question is asking how many milligrams. So this is where we come back to this. And that's the answer there. The other thing that works, that I'll show you on your calculator, that helps me when I actually do these in clinic, because I don't write these out, but I do get these questions a lot, is when you're doing this part, so the 20 times the 500, so your 10,000 is on the calculator, and you don't have to do anything else because the next step is to divide 10,000 by 40. So you will always have the 10,000 divided by 40 or whatever you need already on your calculator from this first step here. So you don't have to clear your calculator. It's kind of a check to make sure that you didn't do it backwards and you're not going to divide 40 by 10,000, if that makes sense. So again, 20 times 500, 10,000, and then divided by 40, 250. So that's one way I do it when I'm actually in clinic. To finish the question, so B is, if the concentration of the drug is 100 milligrams per mil, how many mils do you add? This should be fairly easy because we already have the milligrams here. We're dividing that by 100, so that's simple math. It's 2.5. If you really wanted to write it out the long way, you could. So 10 kilograms times 2 milligrams per kilogram per hour times, well, no, sorry, you couldn't. This is just the beginning of the other drug. So that's this part up here. Okay. But doing it in dimensional analysis, 250 milligrams times the concentration, which is 1 milligram, or one mil has 100 milligrams. And I'm sure you already know this, but as long as you have whatever this is down here, you'll never get the equation upside down. So the milligrams have to be down here because they're up here. So we already know that it's 100 milligrams per 1 mil, and 250 times 1 is 250 divided by 100 equals 2.5. But if you get lost in doing the dimensional analysis, again, you probably already know this, but as long as you have your one value here and then it ends up down here, you'll never get lost, instead of doing 250 milligrams times, by accident, putting 100 milligrams up here divided by the 1 mil. So this would give you 25,000. And the milligrams are both on the top part of the equation, so that's how you know that's incorrect. Plus, I always tell students this, when you're thinking about these questions, if you come up with a number that doesn't seem right, just go back and think about it. Or even if it's something like really tiny, like there's questions that ask about rabbits or mice, and they're in grams, and they're asking you how many mils of a drug are you going to give this mouse or rabbit. And if you do something backwards, you're going to get like an answer that is 250 mils or something that doesn't make sense. We would never give 250 milliliters of an oral medication to a mouse. The mouse probably weighs 30 grams, and 1 gram technically equals 1 milliliter. So we would never give a 30-gram mouse even 30 mils of fluid, because that is its entire body weight. So that's something to keep in mind. All of these questions are real life questions. They have real life answers. They're not just thrown out there. So if you get an answer that doesn't make sense, like if we were starting with 20 milligrams per hour into 500 mils and you get and at 40 mils an hour. So all of these are numbers that are under the total that we're putting in. If you were to get that we're going to add like 2,000 mils somehow, like down here into the 500 mils, that doesn't make sense. So just go back and think about it in real life, and that should also help.